Leap and look, the art of risk-taking. So I'm going to tell you lessons about risking things in your life and what that means, but I congratulate you, Richard. You took a big risk by having me up here. I can tell you that much right now. So I'm a father, a serial entrepreneur, and a fine artist. I'll come back to the father part, the serial entrepreneur. I went to business school and I had the fortunate luck of having Jim Collins, Good to Great, Built to Last, is one of my professors. And business school was kind of getting wrapped up. I said, you know, Jim, really like some advice. You know, I've had little businesses my whole life. I think I want to be an entrepreneur. He goes, okay, well, you know, keep in mind that life is like a train. The train will go by and you'll have once in a lifetime opportunities every 20 minutes. And you got to pick the right one and you better stay on it. You got to stay on it and stay on it. But you'll probably fail and you'll probably fail again. Eventually you'll have a great success. So determination, but I warn you that you will be constitutionally unemployable if you go this route. So that's the route I took my whole life. As a fine artist, if you risk something, you fail, it's kind of interesting because you can do the whole artist tortured thing, and that's kind of cool, that's kind of fun. So, father, you know, you've got to do a decent job at this because if you fail, you suck. Okay? And there's no, like, try again thing. You've already ruined them, right? And nobody should let you try again and then mess up your grandchildren, right? So you got to get that part right. All right. The moment somebody says this is very risky is the moment it becomes attractive to me. That's kind of the story of my life, and I have kind of pursued that. You know, the accomplishment that Jason had was absolutely epic. I mean, who can argue with that? Now, I do get a platinum star, though, for the person taking the most risks across every aspect of my life. So I get the gold star for being the stupidest person on earth. Leap, then look. These are the things that you do that define who you are, that define your life, that you probably shouldn't tell your parents and kids about. But you could tell your grandchildren about it and screw them all up and leave because you're a grandparent. Have you taken a big risk? How many people think they've taken a big risk in their life? You know, starting a business, right? Climbing Mount Everest, getting married, that kind of thing. You're supposed to laugh. But what if you fail? Then everybody gets to laugh at you. Have you ever felt like this? You know, we've been trying, and now we've hit a wall, but aren't we there yet? We should be there. Have you ever felt like this? How many people felt like that after working hard for years and years? 4 of you, great. Good job. Or you can be like this, epic failure. These people are trying not to laugh. But you learn, right? You get up and you do it again. So really, the story of my life is dopamine. Like my mother and father said, I had a big deficiency of it. Okay, so I looked it up in the Webster Dictionary. A compound present in the body as a neurotransmitter and a precursor to other substances, including epinephrine. Boring. Urban Dictionary. It is a neurotransmitter, which means it sends a message in your brain to tell you that you think that girl or guy you are looking at is fitter to make offspring with you than any other dame or dude. We're getting there, but my favorite is the uber chemical in your brain that makes you feel rad and floods your brain with feel good. So I'm going with that one. So my journey, my youth. It all started on a farm in Maryland on the Chesapeake Bay. My dad was sort of a fantasy farmer, weekend farmer kind of guy. He had a regular job, but always wanted to farm. And we had cows and horses, and we didn't have chickens, goats, and we had gardens and fields to plow, and it was awesome. All kinds of risks to jump out of barns and haystacks and break arms and legs and fall out of apple trees and stuff. But anyway, he had a tractor, and my favorite thing was to sit on his lap and plow the fields with him, right? And I got to know how to start that thing and drive it, just watching him. So one day I thought, you know what, I'm going to make him proud. I'm going to do it myself. And I was 7 years old. And I climbed up there and I pushed that little button, turned the key, pushed that button thing, and my legs were dangling on the seat, and I put it into gear, and I started going across the yard, and I was going to plow that field that he just planted. But my mother saw me, and she comes running out and ruined it. My dad jumped on, and they were horrified and all that kind of stuff. And this is me trying to do it myself. The lesson learned is you don't get to play with your toy tractor if you take the big one out and try to plow the field. And then I thought, what's the most dangerous thing as a kid? I'm going to play football, all 60 pounds of me. And I went to sign up with my dad, and the coach said, I don't think you weigh enough, get on the scale. I didn't. And then my dad said, he wasn't standing on it quite right. So I stood on it again, and I felt his foot on the scale, and he pushed the scale down. And he's like, oh, wow, you're way more than I thought. Well, this is what happened. That was my football career. Epic failure. So then I was going to tell you about, after college, biking across the U.S., right? That was going to be a big deal. Yeah, right. So, is Jason here? All right. Well, I wanted to tell him that after 2 days of doing this, I got bored, so I took the wheels off and I hopped it all the way across the United States. Beat that. Okay, adulthood. This is about taking financial risks over and over, making a lot of money, losing a lot of money, making it, losing it, hopefully make it again. But it's about business disruption. My interest always was in finding an industry and disrupting it, something that was basically impossible and trying to do it. And I've been through a number of things. I started one of the first mobile computing software companies in '94 with the Apple Newton. I became the CTO, the founding CTO of CitySearch. We built the largest online guide in the world, merged with Ticketmaster and took it public. I had a number of other couple ventures, saved a ton of money, had a big net worth, and then the tech wreck hit, and 85% of it went away. So at that point, I was pretty burned out, and I did something else, but I wanted to tell you I found this online, Tom Mork's, The Entrepreneur's Journey, okay? Well, first of all, there's gatekeepers, right? You shouldn't do that. You can't do that. You can't even start, blah, 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 but you're passionate and you sell everybody. And gatekeepers go, hey, good luck. We're going to watch you. And you start on your journey, right? And you're all pumped up and your friends are supporting you and you pull together some seed capital. And then all of a sudden you realize it's hard. You fall down into this trench, right? And you're looking up at this, what you think is a mountain, and you work and work and work. You get up there and you realize you're not even started yet. And then you start doing things. It's the habits, right? You keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. You got to get through that. And then you got conundrum forest, where you're trying to find yourself. You're like, what am I doing? You look up, there's a giant mountain. Of course, you got to climb it because it's there, and you're committed. And then you fall down the mountain, and you pretty much hate yourself. You're like, what am I doing? This is awful. And some of your friends hate you because you brought them in too. You go through this horrible, path, and then you get into conundrum forest again. At least it's green. And then you've got to climb the next mountain. What do they call this thing? Tribulation Mountain. So you go up there, and you kind of get a view, and you say, oh, wow, there is a shining star out there somewhere. But then you fall into what they call the annoying-ass sand, and you're dragging yourself through it. There's a serpent. There's another Tribulation Mountain. You fall down, and then all hell breaks loose. I mean, how many of you have been through this phase? Okay. Well, this is bad, right? You question everything. You're depressed. You don't want to go on in a lot of sense of the word. All kinds of self-doubt. And that's when, Jason talked about your tribe, your support group. And that man right there is mine, Tom Richards, LumaStream. He's the finest man you'll ever meet. And so we help each other through these periods. And we've gotten through it. The house is not on fire. And so you get through a few other things. Dragons are no big deal at that time. You get to the top of the mountain, right? That's it. You're there. You raise your hands up like a picture. See a tranquility. You did it. But then you see a brighter star in another mountain, much higher, so you jump in again. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so I switched gears after the tech wreck. I was interested in searching for truth, for what's real. I'd always wanted to be a full-time artist. I studied my whole life. My grandmother's a professional sculptor. And so I was trying to find a studio in San Francisco, and I found this old building, Albion Ale and Brewery. It was basically a castle built by the ballasts from the ships from the gold rush that came in that basin. Super cool building, basically abandoned. So I bought it. I got it really, really cheap because it's in a war zone. It's in the projects in San Francisco. Yes, there are projects. There's gang fights. There's prostitution, drug dealing, shootings. In fact, I just read it was the seventh worst neighborhood in the country in the late 90s. That's where I lived. All kinds of adventures, but it was perfect for me. I lived in a war zone in a fort/castle. That's my deal. I love that kind of stuff. So I jumped into sculpture full force, but I couldn't do it halfway. I had to do the most complex things you could do, structural engineering nightmares, and that's what I did. That's what I liked. And so this is my first big sculpture, Pleasanton Commons, Charles Schwab Office Park. It used to be anyway. And so did some big sculptures. My passion, though, is stone, and I go to Central Washington State, and I get these things called Columbia Basin Columnar basalt. They're giant crystals. And then I drag them all the way back to Florida, where I work on them with diamond equipment. And then I take them to get installed, and they're big. And this is one of the installations in Phoenix, outside of Phoenix. Now, right when the banking crisis happened, I was finishing up a sculpture in Tampa. This is metal panels, giant metal panels, 120 of them, 10 feet tall, 5 feet wide, and I needed to light them. And this is 2009, a decade off, 2009. And at the time, was looking at lighting. I knew how important it was for artwork and a lot of other things, and there was metal halide bulbs, right? And it was going to be about 20,000 watts to light that whole city block, 10, 12 hours a day. And LEDs were just coming on, and I'm a tech guy as well as an artist. And so a couple of us got in a garage, we built our own fixtures, but I realized this is a high-tech product in a 130-year-old Edison industry. The way the industry's doing it does not make sense. They're just going to keep doing what they know. They're going to put a piece of electronics on a high-voltage AC infrastructure. That doesn't make sense. This crowd knows that. So we started to build technology to create a complete low-voltage distribution network and put LEDs, which are low-voltage DC, on a low-voltage DC network, basically, with a centralized power supply. And that's the start of that next journey. But that was many years ago. That was 2010. And now we're through all that horrible stuff. And gosh, why does it take you so long to get into lighting? You're here now, you're talking about it. That's good. Okay, this is probably the riskiest thing I've ever done. The last time I wrote a poem, I'm going to read you a poem that I wrote, was in 8th grade. I think it was called a haiku. Is that a poem? I don't even know if that's a poem, but it was awful. It was really bad. And I don't know why I'm doing this right now. Leap, then look. As a young child, I closed my eyes and I leaped. I soared, I smiled, I fell, I won, I lost, I broke, I lived. As an older child, I leapt and peaked a little bit. I soared, I smiled, I fell, I won, I lost, I broke, I lived, barely. 2 in my tribe died, 2 of my closest friends. As a young man, I started to think about consequences. But now I had to live for 3 of us. But I didn't want to die. People love me, and I love them. So I started to ask why. As an adult, I think and I choose when I leap. And then I look. I look into the unknown, the blank canvas, the uncarved stone, the empty field, and I go for it. One day, bruised, broken, bloody, doubtful, tired, I look back at where I'd been. The field was full of vegetables and fruit. The picture was painted. The sculpture was carved. And maybe, just maybe, the world was a tiny bit better place for it. Now I love more. I care more. I'm a better father and friend. I'm more compassionate. I'm a better listener, and I appreciate more. You can't look, then leap, because there's nothing to see except potential. You define the path. You create the landscape. You achieve the impossible. Make the world a better place. Leap, then. Thank you.